sparked by a near calamity in 1991, when the remnants of the country's gold reserves had to be sent to Switzerland in a bid to raise cash. There was nothing inevitable about India's rise, and Lakshmi uses the personal tales of the poor and the rich to explain how it happened. The third section, Samaj, is more nebulous. It is about broad social patterns and the characteristics that make India itself. The narrative shows things that might be taken for granted in India. The fact the untouchable father of the Constitution was not allowed to sit in a classroom, the misconduct of the police and bureaucracy, the role of servants, the genetics of caste, the importance of India's many Muslims and their loyalty to the national ideal, and the deep and enduring influence of forms of faith. Through looking at the past, and sometimes at quite distant moments in history, the apparent peculiarities and continuing problems of the present can be revealed. Globally, India is now sometimes portrayed as having a competitive edge over more sluggish developed countries that have abandoned thrift, given up on saving, and refused to postpone gratification. Values that are embedded in an Indian way of life appear to have an unexpected relevance. A friend, Niranjan, forwarded me an email. It caught the idea that people like himself had a distinctive way of operating, and their lateral approach presented them with a new advantage. Like other Indians, Niranjan was taking pleasure in the possibility that the citizens of his country were highly motivated and no longer perceived only as the victims of famine or superstition. An Indian man walks into a bank in New York City and asks for the loan officer. He tells the loan officer that he is going to India on business for 2 weeks and needs to borrow $5,000. The bank officer tells him that the bank will need some form of security for the loan, so the Indian man hands over the keys to a new Ferrari parked on the street in front of the bank. He produces the title and everything checks out. The loan officer agrees to accept the car as collateral for the loan. The bank's president and its officers all enjoy a good laugh at the Indian for using a $250,000 Ferrari as collateral against a $5,000 loan. An employee of the bank then drives the Ferrari into the bank's underground garage and parks it there. 2 weeks later, the Indian returns, repays the $5,000 and the interest, which comes to $15.41. The loan officer says, "Sir, we are very happy to have had your business, and this transaction has worked out very nicely, but we are a little puzzled. While you were away, we checked you out and found that you are a multimillionaire. What puzzles us is, why would you bother to borrow $5,000? The Indian replies, "Where else in New York City can I park my car for 2 weeks for only $15.41, and expect it to be there when I return?" Ah, the mind of the Indian. With its overlap of extreme wealth and lavish poverty, its mix of the educated and the ignorant, its competing ideologies, its lack of uniformity, its kindness and profound cruelty, its complex relationships with religion, its parallel realities and the rapid speed of social change, India is a microcosm and may be the world's default setting for the future. Part 1. Rashtra, Nation. Chapter 1. Accelerated History. In Ladakh, the air is thin and dry, and it is cold even when the sunlight burns you. Tashi Norbu could remember how, in 1948, Buddhist monks in their dark red robes had built an improvised rocky airstrip near the monastery in Leh. Out of the sky came a buzzing metal shape, a Dakota airplane carrying India's new Prime Minister, Jawaharlal Nehru. It landed in a cloud of dust. "We had never seen a car or a motor vehicle at that time," Tashi Norbu said, sitting above his apricot orchard, speaking in a Tibetan dialect. He was an old man, an expert in medicinal herbs, water diversion, and the correct way to shoot a bow and arrow. He wore a long brown robe secured with a lime-colored sash, and on his head he had wedged a Homburg. "There were no roads in Ladakh. A plane lands from the sky. You can't imagine. All the people put their hands together and prayed to the plane. We were all praying." Ladakh is a mountainous region by the borders of Tibet.